After years of tension, the Royal Council has moved with stunning finality. Meghan and Harry's last ties to the monarchy official patronages have been severed in what insiders are calling the ultimate erasure. But why now? And what silent war was raging behind palace gates to make this happen? Before we go deeper into what this really means for the royal family, make sure to subscribe so you don't miss a single update. What unfolded behind those sealed palace doors was not a calm administrative process, but an atmosphere thick with urgency, pressure, and unspoken rivalries that had been simmering for years. An emergency royal council meeting was summoned without warning, phones confiscated, aides dismissed, and for hours, the fate of Meghan and Harry's last remaining royal identities hung in the balance. When the decision finally emerged, it came with chilling certainty, an anonymous leak confirming the vote was unanimous, leaving no room for doubt, appeal, or mercy. Whispers spread that Queen Camilla's quiet influence had tilted the scales, her measured words carrying more weight than public statements ever could, while Prince William's silence echoed louder than any protest, raising the haunting question of whether his restraint was an act of strategy or quiet approval. The official justification was delivered with cold precision: damage to institutional continuity, a phrase so sanitized it barely hinted at the emotional warfare beneath it, yet powerful enough to justify severing patronages tied to military families, creative institutions, and mental health advocacy causes that once defined Harry's sense of purpose and Meghan's public mission. For the monarchy, this move was framed as preservation. For the Sussexes, it was nothing short of annihilation. Years after stepping back, the last threads binding them to royal duty were not gently loosened but ripped away in a single stroke. Insiders described the decision as less of an administrative update and more of an execution, carefully timed, strategically framed, and emotionally devastating. The world may have seen only a headline, but within the palace walls it felt like a final verdict delivered after a long and silent trial, one where the accused were never allowed inside the courtroom. This was not just the end of titles on paper, it was the erasure of identity, history, loyalty, and the last illusion that they still belonged to something larger than exile. And as the news raced across the globe, one unnerving truth settled in. This had been planned, calculated, and quietly prepared for far longer than anyone outside those walls ever imagined. Because this wasn't just a decision, it was a tactical strike, engineered after months of secret intelligence gathering from within Meghan and Harry's own circle. What if the people closest to you were the very ones feeding your enemies? Royal insiders reveal that before the decision was made, an intelligence dragnet was activated targeting Meghan and Harry's own staff in Montecito. As whispers of growing defiance began to circle the upper halls of Buckingham Palace, a discreet but highly coordinated surveillance effort was quietly set in motion. It wasn't enough for the Royal Council to act on speculation, they needed concrete proof. And they got it. Analysts working under royal mandate began to comb through public charity speeches, identifying coded language, veiled criticisms, and what they termed subtle defiance rhetoric that on the surface seemed benevolent but underneath signaled growing ideological separation from the crown. The true bombshell, however, came when an anonymous aide long embedded within the Sussex Foundation abruptly turned. This individual, once entrusted with Meghan's inner circle operations, delivered audio recordings of closed-door strategy meetings in which Meghan allegedly voiced concerns that the palace was trying to erase us. Her tone was not merely frustrated, it was fiery, resolute, and to some, dangerously defiant. The recordings were passed through official filters and ultimately into the Royal Council's evidence vault. Inside those recordings was more than just political dissent, it was emotional volatility, disillusionment, and the seeds of what the monarchy interpreted as institutional betrayal. Meghan's words weren't meant for public ears, but now they echoed through Windsor's most powerful corridors. Meanwhile, Harry, caught between loyalty and apprehension, was said to have privately voiced concerns over how Meghan's rhetoric might be received. But even in his doubt, he stood by her. Their unity, once seen as a strength, had now become the very fulcrum the council would use to dismantle their remaining influence. The Sussex Foundation, once a thriving organism of global activism, became a fractured shell almost overnight. Internal loyalty was tested, and when questioned about their allegiances, Several senior staff members abruptly resigned, some citing irreconcilable visions, others simply disappearing into silence. What the world didn't see was that this wasn't merely about speeches or patronages, it was about trust, and within the walls of that trust, cracks were violently forming, the most chilling revelation. The Royal Council had been collecting intelligence on the Sussexes for over 9 months. Every move, every subtle deviation, every moment of ideological independence was being recorded, assessed, and archived, not just for future retaliation, but for the very moment that had just arrived, the complete severance of royal patronage. The dossier they compiled wasn't a spontaneous decision, it was a surgical, slow-motion takedown, masked behind months of calm. And yet, as cold and calculated as this internal campaign had been, it was about to be inflamed by a betrayal that would land far deeper than any institutional purge. Because as the council prepared its dossier, another figure was quietly feeding the fire someone Meghan once trusted, someone closer than she could have imagined. Meghan thought she'd been betrayed by AIDS. She never imagined it would be a blood relative. When Samantha Markle turned over personal family communications to the palace, everything changed. What had once been a strained sibling relationship laced with distant public jabs suddenly exploded into a full-scale betrayal with consequences far beyond tabloid drama. The palace, already deep into its intelligence sweep, was stunned by what Samantha offered: private emails, handwritten letters, and time-stamped voice notes that painted a raw, unfiltered portrait of Meghan's thoughts about the royal institution. But this wasn't mere gossip. These messages weren't venting, they were indictments. Meghan's words revealed a deepening fracture, a spiraling disillusionment with the monarchy's structure and its players. Among the treasure trove was a never-before-seen letter, fiercely worded, where Meghan openly criticised Queen Camilla's growing role in palace affairs, describing her influence as toxic elevation and accusing her of orchestrating strategic silencing from behind the throne. The letter, though never meant for public eyes, became the centerpiece of the Royal Council's next phase. Palace aides, upon reviewing it, labelled the language incendiary and defaming, not just to Camilla, but to the stability of the crown itself. The document had weight, it had venom, and more importantly, it gave the council exactly what it needed: a moral and institutional justification to sever what remained of Meghan's royal patronage eligibility. Samantha's motives were never formally disclosed, but sources close to the matter claimed she acted under the belief that the monarchy deserved to know the full extent of Meghan's private views that, in Samantha's words, betrayed the respect once extended to her. Meghan's reaction when she learned of the handover was devastating. "That's not a sister," she reportedly told a friend. "That's a saboteur." The sting wasn't just in the leak it was in who delivered it. What the palace chose to do next marked a turning point. The council, already armed with insider testimony and staff intelligence, now had family-sourced evidence. The betrayal was too glaring, the tone too corrosive to overlook. That letter became the final nail. In private minutes from the council's internal deliberations, one phrase stood out above all: "This document demonstrates irreconcilable opposition to royal continuity." In their eyes, Meghan wasn't just distancing herself, she was dismantling the bridge with fire. And while she tried to shield Harry and her children from the fallout, this was no longer about damage control. The decision had turned irrevocable. Her last remaining ties were now dangling by a thread, one the council seemed fully prepared to cut. But while betrayal ripped through Meghan's camp back in London, the royal machinery was setting the stage for a public execution in the court of global opinion. Nothing in the royal family happens without optics. As the council moved to sever ties, a silent campaign began, one that would shift the public against the Sussexes, without anyone knowing it was orchestrated. Beneath the surface of decorum and tradition, a strategic machine was already in motion, operating with surgical precision and political subtlety. Multiple PR firms, none directly traceable to the crown, were contracted through shell entities, masking their true allegiances while launching a systematic narrative war. These firms didn't issue open declarations or scandalous headlines. Instead, they planted quiet seeds, anonymous quotes, speculative pieces, and vague criticisms that painted Meghan as a figure of disruption. casting her activism as overreach and her independence as self-serving. The stories were never loud, but they were relentless, appearing simultaneously across publications known for their royal sympathies, giving the illusion of organic, widespread public sentiment. Behind each article, however, was design meant to slowly erode public support, while maintaining plausible deniability. As the smear campaign grew, it slithered into the digital sphere. Internet troll accounts surged in volume, attacking Meghan's speeches, charity work, and even her motherhood. But these weren't rogue actors. Investigators later linked many of these accounts to offshore shell companies, some traced back to digital agencies based in regions known for housing reputation management firms with aristocratic clientele. What was once speculation now felt like orchestration. Instagram, once a stronghold for Sussex supporters, became increasingly hostile. Algorithm patterns shifted, positive posts were suppressed, while divisive content soared to the top. Engagement dipped, visibility vanished, and even verified allies saw their pro-Sussex content quietly shadowed or inexplicably flagged. Inside Montecito, Meghan's team noticed the change. Analytics reports showed a sudden, coordinated pattern of suppression and attack. Their reach was being strangled, not by public opinion but by programmed manipulation. The silence from the palace during this storm was louder than any denial. Meghan grew increasingly unsettled, reportedly asking her team if they were being erased in real time, and Harry, watching the digital tide turn viciously against the woman he had once brought into the royal fold, felt the sting of a betrayal he couldn't trace. The breaking point came when he allegedly sent a personal message to his brother, short, direct and full of disbelief. "Is this you?" There was no reply, only silence. This was not just a character assassination, it was reputational warfare. A campaign designed to ensure that when the council finally made its move, the world wouldn't question it. By the time headlines declared the removal of Meghan and Harry's remaining patronages, the public had already been carefully primed to accept it. Doubt had been sown, sympathy had been eroded, and credibility had been chipped away layer by layer, word by word, post by post. But it wasn't just digital warfare, it was personal warfare. And the final push came from someone Meghan had never expected to speak against her publicly. Long after her death, Queen Elizabeth's influence remains. But now a letter allegedly written by the late monarch has surfaced, and it changes everything. Was this her final word on Meghan and Harry? The document, discovered deep within a secure royal archive and dated just 6 months before her passing, arrived like a whisper from beyond the grave, quiet yet devastating in its impact. Those who have seen it describe a tone that is not cruel, yet unmistakably cautionary, as the Queen reportedly expressed concern about what she called Meghan's disruptive tone, not as an insult, but as a warning that the Duchess's fierce independence was colliding head-on with the immovable weight of royal tradition. In the same breath, the letter is said to soften, offering rare, intimate praise for Harry's compassion and wounded loyalty, calling his heart his greatest strength, but also his greatest vulnerability, as she warned of his impulsiveness, a trait she feared could pull him further from the institution he once seemed destined to protect. What tightened the air inside council chambers, however, was one chilling passage where the Queen reportedly voiced a specific anxiety over the politicization of mental health patronages, worrying that causes meant to heal could be transformed into weapons in a growing ideological war. To some, the words read as concern. To others, they sounded like a prophecy. When the letter was introduced during the council's final deliberations, it shifted the emotional gravity of the room. William, weighed down by duty and legacy, allegedly used the Queen's words as moral leverage, framing the decision not as punishment, but as the fulfillment of his grandmother's unspoken fears. For him, the letter became proof that this reckoning was not sudden, it had been anticipated. For others in the room, it was the ultimate emotional shield, a way to act decisively while standing behind the shadow of the woman whose authority could no longer be challenged. But in Montecito, the reaction was explosive. When Meghan learned of the letter's contents through private channels, she rejected its interpretation outright. It was edited, she reportedly told confidants. It's not what she meant. To her, the words were not a warning, but a distortion, reshaped to justify a decision already determined. The letter that was meant to carry the Queen's voice, instead, became another battleground, another weapon turned into proof against her. For Harry, the wound cut differently. The Queen had been his anchor, his final emotional tether to the world he left behind, and now her words were being used to close the last door he believed still stood open. The past, the institution, and even the memory of his grandmother seemed to be aligning against him all at once. What remained was not just grief, but the suffocating realization that even legacy could be reinterpreted into exile. And as this ghostly warning rocked the foundation of their final standing, the Sussexes attempted one last maneuver, a desperate call to the only person who could stop the council. Meghan's final hope was a plea to the woman who once stood beside her, Catherine. But what she didn't expect was silence, calculated, painful silence that echoed louder than any words. In the wake of the Queen's letter and the council's accelerating moves, Meghan found herself cornered, abandoned by institutions, betrayed by blood, and publicly maligned by a machine too large to stop. But one figure still stood untouched by scandal, unblemished in public perception, and wielding silent power within the monarchy, the Princess of Wales. Catherine, once a quiet ally during Meghan's early days, had become a fortress of loyalty to the crown. Meghan, desperate and vulnerable, reached out through private back channels, not with demands, but with a heartfelt plea. Sources close to the situation claim her message wasn't just about patronages, but about dignity, motherhood, and legacy. She hoped Catherine would remember their shared moments, the whispered talks behind palace doors, and stand up not for politics but for fairness. But there was no reply. Behind the scenes, Catherine did not ignore the message entirely. She discussed it with senior aides, contemplated the ramifications, and measured her every move. But in the end, she chose silence. An insider close to her camp offered a chilling statement. She felt it was too late. The damage was done. For Catherine, the cost of intervention outweighed the benefit. Publicly aligning with Meghan at this moment would be interpreted as insubordination, or worse, weakness. And so she withheld the one thing Meghan desperately needed, her voice. Harry, in emotional turmoil, is said to have begged his brother in private, imploring him to ask Catherine to reconsider. But William, unwavering in his role as heir and protector of legacy, reportedly replied with nothing more than a nod. Catherine's words to him, as later shared by a senior staffer, were icy in their finality. They chose this path. For Meghan, this silence was a deeper betrayal than the public smears or even her sister's sabotage. This was a woman she once believed saw her, and now, at the most crucial juncture of her royal fall, she felt not only ignored but frozen out. The emotional breakdown that followed wasn't explosive, it was quiet, internal, and far more devastating. "She froze me out," Meghan reportedly said, her voice flat, void of the defiance that once defined her. It was not rejection that broke her, it was abandonment. A sisterhood, imagined or real, had vanished into protocol and politics. And yet, as that final hope crumbled, reality struck with unrelenting force. With no allies left inside the walls of Buckingham, Meghan and Harry were forced to confront the one thing they feared most, not being hated, but being erased. In less than 24 hours, Meghan and Harry vanished from official royal websites, internal documents, and event rosters. It wasn't just a rejection, it was a digital purge, a final silent kill. No press release, no televised statement, just a quiet, methodical erasure that swept through the monarchy's infrastructure like a storm without thunder. Their names, once proudly displayed beside causes they had championed, disappeared from patronage rosters with mechanical precision. Emails were sent blunt and unapologetic to partner organizations, instructing them to realign public narrative and avoid future reference to Duke and Duchess involvement. It wasn't a conversation, it was a directive. Royal.uk, once featuring full bios chronicling their achievements, stripped their entries to 3 sterile lines: titles, birth dates, and former affiliations. The warmth, the accomplishments, the carefully curated legacy, they were gone, replaced with calculated vagueness designed to fade them into insignificance. Behind the scenes, digital teams were given quiet orders. Videos, interviews, and public statements tied to their royal work began disappearing from official platforms. Not all at once, but in slow waves. Content wasn't deleted in anger, but in cold compliance, as if the institution itself had decided they no longer existed. The press noticed the change, but were met with icy responses. No comment. Internal restructuring, palace representatives repeated like clockwork, offering nothing, denying nothing. When a senior palace aide was pressed off the record, the answer was blunt. This is what happens when bridges are burned. It wasn't just exile, it was obliteration. For Meghan, it felt like suffocation. Years of effort, of passion poured into causes, of speeches, campaigns, and global impact, erased as if they had never happened. Harry, who had spent years tying his identity to military patronages and mental health work, was now reduced to a footnote in an institution he was born into. The finality wasn't in losing titles, it was in losing the historical proof that they ever mattered within that system. The erasure was not accidental, it was deliberate, chilling, total. And it sent a message not just to them, but to anyone who might think of walking the same path. Defy the crown, and you won't be remembered, you'll be deleted. This wasn't a scandal, it was a silencing, the kind that leaves no fingerprints, no confrontation, and no recourse. And yet, as the monarchy buried them in silence, Meghan wasn't finished, not by a long shot. Her next move would shake every palace hallway to its core. With nothing left to lose, Meghan is preparing to tell everything. In what's being described as a global takedown, sources confirm she has signed a multi-million-dollar interview deal to expose the real reason her patronages were stripped. And this time, there will be no palace advisors to vet the script, no royal press offices to rewrite the narrative. This time, Meghan holds the microphone, and she intends to speak without restraint. The deal, confirmed by multiple industry insiders, was struck with one of the world's top streaming networks, one known for bold, controversial content with massive global reach. But it isn't just the scale of the platform that's causing panic inside royal walls. It's the content. Meghan has reportedly promised to reveal names, dates, and the actual messages exchanged during the final year of her royal connection. No paraphrasing, no summaries, just direct exposure. The teaser trailer, leaked just hours after the purge, pulled no punches. Phrases like royal sabotage and mental health betrayal flash across the screen, set against audio snippets of Meghan saying, "They never wanted us to survive on the inside. There's no ambiguity. This is war on her terms." But not everyone in Montecito was prepared for the escalation. Harry, emotionally spent and haunted by what had already been lost, reportedly urged caution. "We should walk away," he told her, according to a source close to the couple. But Meghan, sharpened by years of silence, media abuse, and institutional gaslighting, replied with words that now echo through the palace halls. They drew first blood. For her, this wasn't vengeance, it was justice, or at least her version of it. The moment the trailer dropped, royal legal teams convened behind closed doors. The Royal Council, already rattled by public speculation and internal dissent, launched quiet consultations with lawyers to determine the scope of what could be legally challenged. But even in private, some members acknowledged the uncomfortable truth they may not be able to stop it. And if they can't stop it, their only option is to brace for impact. Leaks have already begun to trickle from the production team. One internal memo hinted that both Queen Camilla and Prince William could be named directly, not as distant figures, but as active participants in the silencing campaign that ultimately led to the patronage removal. If that happens, the implications would not only devastate reputations, it could destabilize the very hierarchy the monarchy depends on. And yet, as the world prepares to hear Meghan's side, uncut, unfiltered, and unrelenting, the palace has remained silent, not because they have nothing to say, but because they know what's coming. This isn't just another interview, it's a reckoning years in the making. And while Meghan sharpens her voice for the world's cameras, the council meets in panic. Because they didn't just strip her of patronages, they triggered her into becoming the most dangerous thing the monarchy fears, a woman with a story, an audience, and nothing left to protect. But there's one final twist. Because the council didn't just strip the Sussexes of titles, they passed a new protocol, one that may end their royal legacy forever. In a bombshell addendum quietly filed during the council's session, a new clause was introduced, one that would prevent Archie and Lilibet from inheriting any royal privileges. It wasn't just punishment, it was extinction. Buried in the language of constitutional reform, the clause was pitched as a matter of institutional clarity for future generations, a sanitized phrase hiding a devastating truth. The proposal came not from a royal, but from a senior constitutional advisor, an individual handpicked by the council to review succession frameworks in light of new global realities. And yet, make no mistake, this wasn't about succession law or legal housekeeping. It was targeted, intentional, personal. In essence, the clause stripped Harry and Meghan's children of any possibility of holding royal titles, privileges, or ceremonial roles, not now, not ever. It turned what had once been a symbolic exile into generational exclusion. When King Charles was presented with the clause, he reportedly hesitated. Palace insiders described him as visibly disturbed, aware that such a move could trigger a moral backlash far greater than anything they'd yet faced. But in the end, he signed. Perhaps out of duty, perhaps out of exhaustion, or perhaps, as one aide put it, he believed the institution had to protect itself even from its own blood. For Harry, it was a betrayal deeper than anything that had come before. "You're punishing my children for my decisions," he allegedly raged in a private call with a senior royal aide. The silence on the other end was confirmation enough. This was war without boundaries now. Meghan, upon hearing the news, reportedly collapsed into tears. "They've made it permanent," she whispered. "They've erased their names before they've even had a chance to belong." The clause hasn't been officially announced yet. It remains hidden in the legal fog of royal procedure, waiting for the right moment or the least damaging one to be revealed. But the leak has already begun to spread. Trusted journalists have caught wind. Legal analysts are quietly preparing statements. And behind closed doors, PR teams on both sides are bracing for a public reckoning that could ignite a global firestorm. This isn't just a matter of titles, it's about identity, legacy, and the brutal truth that lineage means nothing when the institution decides you're unworthy of continuation. This move, more than any other, revealed the monarchy's capacity for absolute surgical detachment. There are no more illusions of reconciliation now, no more hope for quiet resolution. The clause made one thing crystal clear: this isn't just a chapter ending, it's an entire bloodline being redacted from the royal script. And as the dust settles and battle lines are redrawn, one question remains: can the Sussexes rise from this final royal execution? Or has the monarchy succeeded in erasing them once and for all? Thanks for watching. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and we will see you in the next one.